Hello and welcome to this week's Different League show, sponsored by Betfred. So London has gone into Tier 3. That means now just 4 Premier League clubs are allowed to have fans in their stadiums, one of which is Southampton, and Mark Langdon and I are delighted to introduce ex-Saint Franny Benali. Fran, good to see you.
You too.
How are you? What are you up to now?
Very good, trying to keep busy and out of trouble.
How hard is that?
It's not too bad, actually. It's a lot easier when your side are doing pretty well. So, yeah, delighted with how Saints are doing this season.
You're an ambassador there, aren't you?
I am, Scott, yeah. So it's nice to have that connection with the club still beyond the playing days. And they're doing a lot of great work in the community, given what we've all been going through this year. It's nice to support them with that as well. So, yeah, a lot of positive stuff going on.
A great time to be involved in the club. Okay, let's talk about this week's big talking points, because, there are a lot to go through. Straight after that fantastic draw last night at the Etihad, all come out that Slaven Bilić is going to get sacked at West Brom. So as we speak now, in the next few hours, people are saying, what's your take on that?
I think it's harsh. And then the decision, it appears, was made before the Man City game. And then actually, you could probably call it all the way back to when he was having rows with the board over the sale of players, wasn't it, Agazi, just before the Brighton game or whatever. And there's clearly issues there, and they haven't given him the financial support, to be more competitive in the Premier League. I didn't actually enjoy watching them that much in the Championship last year. I felt they scraped home. They had some really good players, Garner and Pereira. I felt like they could have been a little bit more exciting towards the end of the Championship. I think in the Premier League, I think they're a little bit unlucky. They were 3-0 up against Chelsea. They lost really late on against Tottenham. Against Manchester United, the penalty decisions that were really harsh on them. They've then gone to Man City and got a point. They beat Sheffield United. Yeah, I think it's harsh. I think it's a harsh decision, and probably not overly to do with the football side of things.
In what way then?
I think it's the arguments. I think that Bilić, he has his bust ups. I think it's pretty clear as to the type of guy that he is. He's very wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's very passionate about the job. When you start getting into rows with the people above you and calling them out, as he did after the Agazi transfer.
There's only one winner.
Yeah, there is. Unless you're winning, unless you're putting 4 or 5 wins together, it becomes quite easy to get rid.
How do you look at this, Fran? I mean, in the relegation zone, just 1 win so far this season, the worst defensive record in the Premier League, or is it they're 2 points from safety? They had a great result last night, and are probably where they should be given the investment and the games they had, where they have been unlucky against big clubs.
That's right. I mean, I guess it depends maybe your outlook a little bit, and if it is your club, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, it's always going to be difficult coming up under the circumstances they have done, and that investment, as Mark's saying, or lack of. And there's been little fine margins, haven't there? Games, like you say, that have been 3 up against Chelsea, and then you only can walk away with a point, and it's those fine margins at any level, but in the Premier League it is that much harder for sides coming up to establish themselves. If you get a good start, that momentum can sort of carry through for a period. It's a difficult one for them. But
so would you stick with him if you were in charge there? If you were a Baggies fan, what would you?
There's always going to be a first one to go, isn't there, in the season? And I guess at this stage I would still look to maybe. I guess with the window coming up, maybe the club are looking at that. If a new person does come in to replace him, that they might then sort of support him a little bit more in the market. But personally, I would like to see him stay a little bit more.
A few names have been mentioned. Number 1 at the moment is Sam Allardyce. Is that because of the defensive record? I mean, what do you make of him coming back into?
Big Sam is just seen as the sort of the survival expert, isn't he? And I suppose you would say I think he's an upgrade on Slaven Bilić, I think.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, I don't always love the way his team go about, getting their points, but I think he is an upgrade. I think some of the other names on the list are a little bit confusing. I think Mark Hughes has had enough sort of bad jobs to not be considered for this one. Eddie Howe, I'm not sure if he then players that are at West Brom now, and a complete change of style is exactly what they need. I think Allardyce is much sort of closer really to how Bilić was playing with that team, and they're quite robust at the moment. He's been playing 5 at the back sometimes. So I think when you get rid of a manager, it's not so bad if you replace them with somebody better. And I think Sam Allardyce would be an upgrade. It was a bit like when Brendan Rodgers left Liverpool. I felt that was harsh, but they were bringing in Jurgen Klopp, and so you understand it.
But why do you think Sam's an upgrade on Slaven Bilić?
Well, because I think Bilić actually had issues at West Ham. If you go when he was manager at West Ham, he started really well there, and actually they then tailed off. I think with Croatia it happened the same. I think there's a bit of a history really of Bilić starting well and things quickly falling down.
How do you see it, Fran?
It's a decent opinion in a way, I guess, given you look back on his previous record, there is maybe a pattern there, and I guess maybe that's what West Brom are looking at. Have they gone beyond that point of that impact and the effect that he can have on the club and on the team? But you're right, it's who comes in and replaces him. Is it going to be that person that has the change and has an effect on them? You know, I think every club needs to invest in, tweak it here and there a little bit. It's healthy for the dressing room to see new players coming through the front door. So, whether he stays or goes, I think, they definitely need some help in the market.
Okay, we'll move on. And bad news, of course, that London's moved into Tier 3. The rest of the country probably won't care.
No.
But it is another step back, isn't it, in terms of getting the full stadia around the country?
Yeah, it really is. And, we were hoping that 2 would quickly become 4, 6 and 8. You get 2 in each sort of, side of the stand. It is definitely a step backwards and probably a reality check for those, we so want it to happen that maybe, the bigger picture is that, people need to be safe first. But I think football has shown that once that side, football has shown it can allow fans into the stadium.
Well, Frank Lampard has said that he believes it's not for him to decide, and he knows that. But even with going into Tier 3, that football fans still, it can be done.
Yeah, I think what becomes the issue is the travel around. If you're telling people to limit your travel and then you're, 3 London teams at home or whatever on the same day, you've got 6,000 people all going to a game, that becomes, I think, an issue bigger than football. And so I think football just needs to toe the line, accept the government tiers, and then once they're ready to go again, they've shown they can do it. Yeah, okay. They've shown they can do it.
Bad news there. Sad news about the passing of Gerard Houllier, the former Liverpool and Aston Villa manager. Won 5 major trophies for Liverpool, including that incredible treble in 2001. Made a big impact in English football, certainly at Liverpool. And it's interesting listening to the former Liverpool players. They talk about the man as much as the manager, don't they? Which is a real sign of the type of person he was.
I think that's it. Exactly, in a nutshell, Scott, isn't it? He's had that impact, especially on Liverpool and those trophies in that incredible year, winning the treble. And people are going to remember that quite naturally. But hearing the stories and the tributes to him, I think the mark of the man was that he wasn't just affecting people's lives from a football sense. It was away from that. It was caring for them as an individual and a person and a human being ultimately. And I think that speaks ultimate volumes about him and what he was like and how he was as a man and a person, not just in a football sense, but how he treated people in general.
Yeah, made a big impact there. Premier League chat to come, but Monday was the Champions League draw. For the English sides, Liverpool against Leipzig, Manchester City, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Chelsea would play Atletico Madrid. What about for those sides? That's a tough one for Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm not sure Chelsea, if you look at sort of matchups and teams that you want to play against, I don't think Chelsea would want to play against a team that defends really well and then looks to counter-attack. And they had problems against that last night against Wolves, and controlling the counter-attack, I think, has been an issue for Chelsea in terms of the fact of they did it against Tottenham, but then they shut their own attack down at the same time. And when you win your group, you're hoping for something easier than Atletico. I think Man City, despite their issues at the moment, will beat Borussia Mönchengladbach quite convincingly over the 2 legs. Liverpool, I expect to beat Leipzig, but again, you could have got an easier tie there. And Leipzig, that 5-0 against Manchester United when they got beat, is not a true reflection of their ability. They're much better than that. They went to Munich recently, got a 3-3 draw against Bayern Munich. If you can do that to Bayern Munich, you can do that to Liverpool. So it's a dangerous game. The one advantage I think that Liverpool have got is that Klopp won't be taking them lightly. He watches a lot of the Bundesliga. He knows how good they are.
How do you see it for the English sides? How many do you think will go through?
we naturally, from a Premier League perspective, it's great to see your sides competing in Europe, isn't it? I mean, out of, all those three sides, they only lost one out of the group stages, didn't they? In the qualifying stages. So, I guess it's that balance between and having a squad, and Liverpool certainly have it, City have it, Chelsea have it. I think that they've got a squad that they can balance between competing on the Champions League front and also competing on the Premier League. So it's getting that juggling act right. I know injuries come in this time of season and the schedules are pretty hectic, but with Mark on that, I think there's a tricky one for Chelsea, but no reason why we shouldn't sort of perform, and it's good for our league to see the English sides competing well.
Yeah, I fancy Liverpool, I fancy City. I think it's 50-50 with Chelsea, and fingers crossed we'll get through that one. Europa League, Spurs have Wolfsberger, Arsenal, Benfica. Come on, Benfica. Leicester, Slavia Prague, Rangers, Royal Antwerp, and Manchester United, Real Sociedad. And that's a tough one, isn't it? Real Sociedad, the way they're playing in La Liga.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we were wondering what he's done. They got the hardest Champions League, one of the hardest Champions League draws you could get against Paris Saint-Germain and Leipzig. And then you drop down to the Europa League, and you thought, well, how bad can it get? And it's probably about as bad as it could have got for them. David Silva, I mean, he's maybe not quite the player he was a couple of years ago, but I think Man City is still missing him in that midfield, so he's pulling the strings for Sociedad. I would still say Manchester United to come through over the two legs, but it's probably the hardest tie of all of them. Leicester, I don't think will have any problems. Rangers, the way they're playing under Gerrard, fancy them to beat Antwerp. I mean, Tottenham should have no problems against Wolfsberger in the bottom half in Austria. Benfica, they're not playing well at the moment. It's not quite happening for them. They spent quite a lot of money as well in the summer. But I mean, Arsenal, it's hard to say what Arsenal will turn up really in the next 2 months. And I think that it should be. I expect them all to go through actually.
Do you? All five?
I expect all five to go through. But United definitely could have been easier. How
do you see it, Fran? I mean, is it better for United that they're playing sort of in February rather than right now? And how many do you think will go through?
I think it will definitely help United for sure. I mean, naturally they don't want to be dropping out of Champions League. That goes without saying. And
don't want to be dropping out the Europa League first time.
Well, no, exactly. That's true. Yeah, very true. But I'm pretty confident that we'll all be fine on going through for our sides. It's that adding to that schedule again, but again, it just buys you a little bit of time sort of with the fixtures coming around in the new year.
Okay, now we started a new section last week. It was the social section. We shall be carrying on where people or players or clubs have put up some funny posts or just funny captions. This, Fran, is what we've got this week. First of all, it is Jose Mourinho on Instagram advertising a chair. Important office time and planning for the next game in my secret lab chair. #ad. I mean, he's loving his Insta right now. It looks a bit like Doughboy trying to sell that.
He does, doesn't he? Is it a special chair?
It must be very special.
In one way or another. That's an interesting one. And I think he seems to have caught the imagination of certainly Instagram and social media with some of his posts, hasn't he? So interesting though that he's going down the advertising route. I guess people are just drawn to what he's doing on social media.
He's obviously a charismatic, popular guy, but you're surprised to see him on social media.
He's become the king of sort of dad Instagram, really. Doing these sort of really
embarrassing
average,
dad or cool dad?
really embarrassing dad. But I'm just waiting for Jose for it to sort of go wrong a little bit, and I wonder how funny he'll be on Instagram then. But it looked lovely, didn't it? That sort of
he's selling it well. Isn't it?
But not only the chair, just the office space that he's got, where he can see out onto the training pitch and cast an eye over Dele Alli and Harry Winks and tell them what they're doing wrong.
Wow. Does he not like Dele Alli doing all his off the field stuff?
Yeah, that's a good point, Scott. It's I guess for a manager, and I guess maybe even a certain generation, this whole social media thing, you either embrace it or you in many ways you're fighting it or against it. And I guess there's been plenty of situations where you could question maybe players and where's that line. But now he's dived into the pit, so maybe he's going to have to sort of ease back any criticism to players like Dele.
Well, as you say, he's a dad. Do as I say, not as I do. That's what I do anyway. Okay, next up, It is the Arsenal fan from last week with the mask over his face, over his eyes. Not surprised after what happened in the Burnley game. I mean, at least he stayed till the end. But you felt his pain, didn't you?
Oh, for sure. Blimey, it's. I guess that's a pretty good use for him and maybe many others. For Arsenal at the moment, but certainly not what the supporters want to be seeing at this moment in time when they get a chance to go back into the stadium. But quite an amusing one that the cameras picked up. Yeah, that's a funny one. That.
He's not even doing a Zorro, is he? With sort of like cutting out his eyes. He just doesn't want to see. He can't believe what's happening.
And I saw on a quote from Arteta in the game leading up to the Southampton match where he said he'll take the bullets for the rest of the team, and somebody said, "Why? Who's going to cross them in?" Because they're obsessed by crossing at the moment. Yeah. I mean, that is better than watching Arsenal at the moment.
That sums up where Arsenal are right now. Okay, we also started a new section last week. It's the Q&A section. Went down really well with Sean Gota and good questions to him. You got the chance of winning a £25 Amazon voucher if your questions are read out to our guests. Fran, you ready?
I think so. 2
questions for you. John Dean, first up. Did you ever doubt or want out Ralph Hasenhüttl after that 9-0 defeat to Leicester last season? Did you doubt him?
I didn't, Scott, to be honest, no.
Honestly?
Honestly, yeah. No, I mean, listen, we've been in games, and I've certainly been on some wrong ends of some hefty defeats. Thankfully not a 9-0, but...
no, I had a 6 and a 7, but
did
never
you?
a 9.
Yeah, there's been some big ones, but I think those moments are very much either a turning point in one way or another. It either gets worse or you somehow bounce back. And it's a chance to reset, refocus. And you saw how Ralph immediately took responsibility, saying it was all down to him at the time. You could see he almost had the world on his shoulders in that interview straight after the game.
He offered his resignation, didn't he?
Yeah, and the board stood by him immediately. And what both Ralph and everyone at the football club have done is gone back to basics. He changed a few things. He was tinkering with the side a little bit at the time, and he's sort of found a formula that works now, and everyone knows their roles, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. And I'm pleased in a way because Southampton, probably like a lot of clubs, when you get that turnover of managers, it's not great. The stability's there. You want some sort of continuity, and I think sticking with him and letting him work through his philosophy has certainly helped the club. And I felt like that at the time a little bit. I'll be honest, I didn't realise it would be as good as it is here today. But I'm pleased that they stuck with him.
We'll come on to that, how good it is when we talk about the game at the weekend. But tell us a little bit more about Ralph Hasenhüttl and exactly what he does, what makes him a little bit different, and certainly a very good manager anyway.
Well, when lockdown came around, he went back and he's drawn up a blueprint that works not just for the first team squad, it runs right through the club. And recruitment has been a little bit hit and miss in recent years with players and the odd manager or two, but historically, Southampton have produced players of their own and bought quality to get that balance right. And they're certainly doing that now. And Ralph is a huge part of that. His work ethic as well. I'm aware of, timings where he's waking up at all kinds of hours, working on the game, working on the club, sending messages and emails at, sort of silly o'clock. For most of us. So he's got the right attitude, right work ethic, and he's got a squad and a club buying into how he wants to do things, and we're seeing the results of that now.
We certainly are. Okay, next up, Sean Lavery. Can Southampton actually make top 4 this season?
I'd love to think
they're
that
right
could.
now.
Yeah, they're there now at the moment. This season's a funny one, isn't it? Because there's, I think, is it 5 points from Wolves in 10th to Liverpool and Spurs on 25 points, joint top? It can go. There's not much between the table as a whole, is there? And as great as it is seeing Southampton sat in 4th position, and as well as we're doing, I think that'd be massively overachieving. I predicted a top 10 beginning of the season.
Are you changing that now?
I think top 10, given our start, is very much a target that must be attained given where we are and the performances and the results we're getting at the moment. But as we know, it's a difficult season, a long season, and but top 4 would be a little bit too much of a stretch, as lovely as I would like to see it.
I think the way the season's going at the moment, we have no idea what's going to happen. So who knows whether Southampton can get top 4 or not. Okay, get your questions in for next week with a chance of winning that £25 Amazon voucher. Gabby Agbon-Lahore is with us this time next week. Should be a good one now.
The Leeds fans might be...
the Leeds fans, yeah, get your questions in if you want. See if you can make the top 2 with the questions. Okay, look, it's Wednesday morning as we speak, so we don't know about how all the midweek fixtures have gone. We'll talk about the selected weekend games in just a second, but we have an absolute cracker tonight, don't we? It's Liverpool versus Spurs. It's first versus second. It's Jose versus Jurgen. How funny was Jose last night when he was talking about each individual Liverpool player going through the team and saying, actually, they're not decimated by injuries?
I think he's got a point, because if you look at what Liverpool's best team is, how many of those would get into it that are out at the moment? But where I think it falls down is that because Liverpool are playing so many matches, that what Jurgen Klopp's saying, he's unable to rotate as much, and so that's actually those that are playing are probably playing a little bit too much. So Salah and Mane maybe are running, if not on empty, then certainly not where they'd like to be. But
they played in the Champions League when they didn't need
did.
to.
That was a really weird thing. I think as well, though, in the Champions League, you're only allowed to register a certain amount of players, and maybe Jurgen Klopp didn't feel like he could just go and throw in some sort of 16-year-old from the academy. Yeah, but I think that a lot of managers don't like doing that and sort of putting like basically children in when they're not ready, and so maybe wanting to protect them. And I think what it did show is that Jose Mourinho's got his sparkle right back, and he fancies it. I think he'll downplay it, and he calls it, there's a little pony in the horse race. I think you can tell by his actions in these press conferences that he fancies it a bit more than that.
The little pony is doing quite well at the moment. Now, I'm a massive fan of Jurgen Klopp, but obviously he went big on the sort of 5-sub rule, which I think he's now realised he just needs to, it is what it is, and it'll happen if it will happen. But after the Fulham game, he said, I don't want to be disrespectful, but Fulham didn't play the way they normally play. They played very direct. I mean, what was he hoping for? Just, okay, Scott, here, this is what we're going to do, Jurgen. We'll play out from the back and we'll let you just press us.
Yeah.
What did you make of him saying that?
I mean, we've seen a little bit like Mark's touched on, like in some press conferences that, like he's been upset about kickoff times and, forget the overall schedule of games, but just seen him rattled a few times, haven't we? It feels like, and there's that infamous almost one recently with Des Kelly, I think, wasn't it? And it turned into quite a battle, but not really used to seeing him that.
No.
In the past, and I guess that's maybe because the side have been playing well. Obviously, the loss of Van Dijk, as we all know, is a huge thing, and it's a side of him I think that we're intrigued by, and especially given, like you say, that little sparkle that Mourinho's got at the moment. It sets the game up in a fascinating way. But yeah, you're right. Coming back to the Fulham game, nobody's going to say, well, this is how we're going to play today, and we're going to change things up. And he's got to know, going to clubs like Fulham, anyone that's in the division at that stage of the season or in that kind of position, they're going to fight, they're going to scrap. And anyone playing Liverpool or City or Tottenham, teams like that at the moment, they are the big games that teams want to win, whoever they are playing.
How big an opportunity is this for Spurs? I mean, they've had some difficult games recently. They beat City, they've beaten Arsenal, they got a draw at Stamford Bridge. If they go to Anfield and even get a win, what does that say for them and their title credentials? But also, what does it say about how strong or not so Liverpool are?
Big statement regarding Spurs for sure. I mean, is it 11 unbeaten? I think they're going well. They're looking like a side that is just gelling. Like Liverpool are stuttering a little bit, and there's reasons for that. But Tottenham, Jose's got him just a well-oiled machine now, and it's working. Key signings. I remember not only too well Pierre-Emile Højbjerg at Southampton, saw him an awful lot, and at the time I thought, is Tottenham almost going to be maybe a right fit? But Jose's seen how he would work in that Spurs side, given that backbone to this side.
He's playing well as another centre-half, isn't he?
So yeah, they're on it. Tottenham are bang on it. But I think this was going to be a very close one, this one.
Yeah, but this is the type of game that Mourinho absolutely loves.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's gone to Anfield with better teams than Tottenham and just shut games down before. So I don't expect anything different from that point of view. I think he'd actually be better off giving it a bit more of a go, because Liverpool have got key absences at the heart of that defence, and Kane and Son could really hurt them. But against Chelsea, you didn't see that because he was so intent on just making sure they didn't lose the game, and I think it will be exactly the same approach. People talk about Mourinho masterclass and everything. It's very predictable. He's one of the easiest managers to call, and I'm almost certain that he will play exactly the same way.
I agree. Not easy on the eye, but not easy to play against. So your Betfred selection for this game then, Fran?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a score draw on this one. Yeah, 1 each.
Okay, Mark?
I think the Anfield factor will be decisive, and this might be one game too many for Tottenham in the hard run. Liverpool win.
A week ago, I totally agreed with you. Now, I'm with you. I actually think Liverpool, as good as they are at home, and they are wonderful at home, aren't they, have shown some deficiencies, have shown some weaknesses. And I think in Son and Kane at the moment, there's not a better strike force in Europe, let alone the Premier League. So I'm going for a score draw as well, but it should be a very good game indeed. Very interesting, if not perhaps exciting. We'll see which tactics win out there. Okay, let's have a look at the weekend games then, the selected weekend games. And we'll start with Liverpool again. They're back in London, Crystal Palace. Well, obviously, as we speak, we don't know how Liverpool got on against Spurs or Palace at West Ham. But back in London, do you see this being a similar game to the Fulham game? Because Palace, we know what Palace are, more so than Fulham in terms of being very compact and then trying to hit on the break.
Yeah, exactly. You talk about knowing what you're going to get from a Tottenham and certain sides. That's very much the case with Palace, isn't it? Zaha, as we know, is just going to be a key player for them, and the way that he plays and the impact that he has on drawing that team through and getting the results. So, I'm sure, Jurgen won't be too keen on heading back to the capital so soon after playing Fulham, but I see them sneaking this one. I think they're going to bounce back on this one pretty strong. Again, not knowing what's happening this evening.
They have a great record at Anfield. Again, we don't know what's happened with the Spurs game, but they don't have a great away record at the moment. Why such the difference, do you feel?
Great question, Scott. I think it's that they haven't been able to find that consistency like they've had before. Having said that, it's a great opportunity for youngsters like Curtis Jones to come in and get a run of games and see what players like that can do. But they're not the side that they were last season, and the whole Premier League's not the same. It's a strange one, and maybe there's a side that is in the division that can capitalise on that this season, because your Liverpools and sides like that aren't at the same levels as where they have been. Manchester City in the past are struggling this season, so away form's a strange one. Sometimes teams just have. I remember it as a player myself a little bit. There were certain sides or grounds that you'd rock up to, and you just felt almost like a bit of an uncomfortableness. So whether it's a mental thing, certain sides you call it like a little bogey team or something, and maybe Liverpool come into London is
not easy. Selhurst Park, is it? No. How difficult do you think Palace could make this for them?
I think they really could. Liverpool, the away form, I think, is a big problem. The Brighton, Aston Villa, when they lost 7, and people say, "Oh, that was just a complete freak," and it was to a certain extent. But the away form just has continued to be really average, really, by their high standards. And Crystal Palace played well against Tottenham. Definitely deserved their draw. I mean, the goalkeeper Gator made some big saves. He also made a really big error that sort of put them in a bad spot in the second half. They were putting in set pieces, and it doesn't matter how good you are, if Eze puts set pieces in like he can, and you've got people attacking it, it's really difficult to stop. And so I think that a quick turnaround from such a big game on Wednesday, another early kickoff. Sure, Jurgen Klopp will be happy. Yeah, he'll love that. And it's the kind of game where Liverpool will feel probably less comfortable than the odds suggest. The odds suggest they should win easily. I don't think they will.
Who are you going for then?
I'm going to go for a draw. I went for the draw, Crystal Palace against Tottenham, and I see it being a very similar game to that. And I just think the quick turnaround from such a big game on Wednesday, not ideal with the squad they've got at the moment.
Fran?
I think they're just going to edge this one. Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 on this one. Just think they'll have enough on the day to, the schedule, as Mark's saying, is a bit of a hindrance for them at the moment, but I think they'll have enough on the day to bounce back. Won't be a repeat of the Fulham result.
No, I've changed my mind on this one. I initially thought it would be a draw because I think it'd be a really difficult game. And then I thought, predict draw Spurs, draw against Palace. That's Liverpool dropping 4 points in just space of a few days. Now, that can happen. It's a crazy Premier League season, but I don't know. I think somehow they're going to nick this one as well. I think they'll keep it tight. Palace are not great going forward, so I'm going for a Liverpool 1-0 win here. Okay, game preview 3. One that Fran, I know, has been looking forward to. It is Southampton against Manchester City. Now, City drew against West Brom last night. Southampton play Arsenal tonight. That's going to be a good game as well. But Southampton, Fran, in a Champions League place as we speak. We've already said you don't believe they'll finish there. But, I mean, how well is... We've talked about Ralph Hasenhüttl in terms of the job that he's done. But what about the players that he has and how he's getting the best out of them? Danny Ings probably their best player. Didn't seem to miss him too much, although you wouldn't want him out for too long. Shea Adams is now scoring after what happened last season as well. Yeah. Theo Walcott's come in and done really well. There's some very good players playing really good football at the moment.
Exactly that, Scott. Yeah, and he's got them. He's improved everybody, the whole squad. Not just as a team unit, but individually players are playing really well as well now. Got Alex McCarthy, making important saves. Any side that's going to perform well and get results, you need your goalkeeper performance. He's done really well. The centre-half partnership of Vestergaard and Bednarek, they've improved. I mean, Vestergaard wasn't even a first-choice centre-half not so long ago. So he's coming in and performing extremely well, scoring goals as well. Set pieces with the deliveries from Ward-Prowse as well. There's another angle to Southampton as an attacking threat as well. And then you've got the obvious goals that Danny Ings brings to the side. As you rightly said, with his injury recently, Shea Adams has stood up to the plate. We've got Theo Walcott coming in now, giving a little bit more of a driving presence and a pace on the ball. And then there's players like Stuart Armstrong who are completely underrated in my opinion, almost like to the level of when we had Stephen Davis at Saints. Players that often go under the radar, but it's not until they're out the side they actually realise what they bring to the team. So, yeah, there's lots of positive stuff going on at Saints. And I think just players performing at a high level and a high standard within a framework that Ralph brings has meant anyone coming up against them, and certainly City won't relish, or anybody else playing Southampton at this moment in time.
You've already said you don't see them finishing top 4. I think most people would go along with that. But can they keep up the kind of style of play, the intensity, the pressing, and throughout the whole season? It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. And when you do play that style, it's a big demand on the players, isn't it? Don't get me wrong, I would love to see them in the top 4. And this is a bonkers season already, as we've seen already, so who knows what could happen. But it's when you're playing that way, I think it's important now there's players starting to come back a little bit. My little doubt, I think, recently was when we did have an injury or two, I looked at our bench and, I think, the 5 subs debate is something there, may favour the bigger sides, stronger squads. We had like a real young-looking bench. So if we do pick up an injury or two and maybe the schedule starts to become a little bit of a struggle with the way, the intensity that Southampton play at, that could be a little bit of a problem. So this is going to be a key month or so for them, to whether they can maintain that sort of place in the table.
Okay, well, they come up against the Manchester City side that are a million miles from where they were 2 years ago. Should they have gone for the jugular in the derby? What did you make of them there? And with all due respect to West Brom, defended brilliantly last night, but to draw at home to them.
I thought they were over-criticised for the draw away at Manchester United. I think in isolation, a point at Old Trafford, I don't think it's a bad one. I know Manchester United are having
They were in a bad place.
They were in a bad place. They were under pressure. They were in a bad place. But I still think what's going to be, and you called it right at the start, it's going to be a low points total that wins the Premier League. I think Guardiola was probably thinking, we'll beat West Brom, draw away to Manchester United, 4 points from those games. I can live with that. People always criticise Man City for their defensive lapses in concentration in big matches. There was none of that at Old Trafford. They looked really solid. They still had the best chance as well with Mahrez. I can understand why they didn't push and maybe risk losing a goal on the counter-attack. what is, I think, unexcusable really was the performance against West Brom. I was watching, last 5-10 minutes, they perked up and started to create chances, but for most of that game, that was, I mean, even before they scored, West Brom had the best chance in the game. That was way below where City need to be if they want to win the Premier League. I think that obviously they're missing Sergio Aguero and a fully fit Sergio Aguero, but that midfield just lacks inspiration at the moment. Kevin De Bruyne is having to do it all by himself, and he actually, I don't think he's suiting him. I think he's trying to do too much now, and the wingers are not getting involved as much as they have been sort of previously. They don't look as frightening as they once did.
So, Betfred selection. If Southampton were in a bad place, you'd still go for a Southampton win, but you can justify this, can't you?
Yes, in some ways.
Are you going for a win?
As much, I mean, this is a head and heart scenario for me very much, isn't it? My heart is saying yes, they can do it, and they can do it given some of the games and performances we've seen. But there's just something about me. I think that I think City, you can't deny some of the quality, although they're not firing on all cylinders, as Mark said. I'm going to go for a score draw on this 1-1.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a draw as well. I mean, I definitely wouldn't be backing Man City.
I'm going to go for it. I think Southampton can do it. I think this is a great time to play City right now. Not playing well, not scoring goals. As you say, it just seems to be pass. And Southampton, I think the way they're playing, the confidence they've got at home with some fans.
How big a win?
Not a big one, right. Just by the one goal.
I'll take that then.
But I'm going to go for it, yeah. Southampton to win against Manchester City. Okay, game preview 4, which is a fascinating one as well. Everton against Arsenal. Everton at Leicester tonight. Arsenal play Southampton. Now, Fran, I thought there'd just be the one goal in the Burnley game, and I actually thought Aubameyang would probably score it. I didn't think it would be an own goal. I mean, they've lost the last 4 home games. They've not done that for 61 years. Worst start to a season for 46 years. 10 goals in 12 games, and they're 15th in the league. Apart from that, everything's going well. No, I mean, what's wrong for you here? Why is it so wrong when we didn't expect it right at the very start of the season?
Not at all, no. And I was quite intrigued with Arteta's appointment, and I thought there was a gut feeling, there's still a feeling of this personally, that I think this needs to be a long-term appointment for Arsenal if it's going to work for Arteta. And we've heard some noises recently that, Edu's come out and given some backing after the result. So, but there's something not right there at all. The players aren't helping themselves. You've always got that Ozil situation that's lurking in the background as well, which always sort of gets brought up when things aren't going well. If they're winning games and they're doing well, wouldn't get mentioned.
So it's being brought up after every game at the moment.
Exactly, yeah. And but yes, the managers ultimately are the ones that are in the firing line for all this. But I always feel that in these sort of scenarios, and whether it's like especially someone like an Arsenal, I know we spoke about Bilic's role being under threat, but the Arsenal players have got to step up and do more. Yeah. For me, much more. And and we've seen lack of discipline with.
Well, I know you never had any disciplinary problems in your career, so this might be difficult for you to answer. I mean, seriously though, what do you feel Mikel Arteta should do? He's made a statement with Ozil. One, what do you think about that? But also, two, what should he do with Granit Xhaka now after what he did last week?
I think he's almost laid down already his style of management, hasn't he? And you could say that's a club decision, the Ozil situation, but he's got to stick with it. I think if he changes that now and goes back and backpedals a little bit, he'll lose more faith and faith in the dressing room. Xhaka himself has got to look at himself and sort himself out. And maybe this is poacher turned gamekeeper here a little bit, with my back record. But there's scenarios like whether you're a player on a booking, and especially nowadays, you walk in that tightrope. But when the club aren't doing well and there's a lot of negativity around the side, the last thing you need to be doing is almost like raising hands and losing your cool in those sort of situations. It needs calm heads, calm minds, big characters, big personalities. The question is do Arsenal have that at the moment? But from Arteta's perspective, I think he needs to stick with his style of management, and hopefully he'll get the chance to see it through long term.
I agree. Time, windows, money, patience. It's not always easy though, is it, in today's world of football. Everton, 28% possession against Chelsea. Very compact though. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, very much a threat, and he'll be looking forward to this game, I think.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, Everton, I think, needed something like that. They were conceding far too many goals, and Ancelotti, a bit like we've seen other managers, I'm not having this anymore, and just shut the game down, and it worked. And I think with the players they had out as well, I think it was the right thing to do in such a big game, because they sort of slipped below the standards they set right at the start of the season. Looks like Ancelotti's quite positive that Coleman and James Rodriguez could come back for the Arsenal game as well, which I think will give them more creativity, and hopefully they don't lose too much defensive, sort of what we saw against Chelsea, but can add a little bit further going forward. Whatever happens to Arsenal against Southampton on Wednesday, I still think it's a different mentality to going away from home again. And even if they win, backing up that performance, if they lose, I mean, what sort of mood and mindset are they going to be in? I think this is a really hard game for Arsenal.
Okay, we don't know what's happened in the Wednesday games, but your prediction for this one, Everton-Arsenal?
I can't see it. I think Arsenal are still going to find it a rough time at the moment. So, yeah, a home win, comfortable home win for Everton, and Calvert-Lewin to score in this one.
Yeah, Everton to win.
I've got the same as well. Calvert-Lewin's going to fill his boots, I think, and Everton to win 2-0. Okay, game preview 5. Good game this one as well. Tottenham versus Leicester. I mean, Spurs play Liverpool tonight. Leicester play Everton. Any Mourinho side likes to sit back and then pounce. Do you feel Leicester will let them?
I'm really intrigued about this one. Sort of Leicester, very much like when they won the title a few years back, they seem to be going about their business in a quiet manner, and not too many people are talking about them. There's so many stories with other clubs going on for us to all talk about that. Leicester just seem to be doing their thing. Brendan Rodgers is doing an incredible job there. With some departures, you could have easily have sort of fallen away a little bit, but they found a way of replacing that and having that sort of sparkle still within the side.
So are they title contenders for you?
Who knows what can happen this season? I mean, anything is possible, literally. I wouldn't rule them out. At this moment, I mean, there's still a lot to do, and improvement, and you need performances from players. Vardy's not on the international scene anymore, and the age he's at, it seems to be working for him. From there's going to be goals in him, and Maddison as well. For me, in recent form, the goals he scored last week were just outstanding. So if he's fit and he can play and he can perform, Barnes I like. There's just a nice look to the Leicester side.
Leicester finished 5th last season, Spurs 6th. As we sit here, it's 1st versus 3rd as the table is. Who's better equipped, do you feel, to mount a title challenge?
They're both sat pretty, aren't they, at the moment? I guess with the tools at his disposal, I'd probably say Tottenham. And the players in the way that they're looking at this moment of time in the season, that was the way I would go. But ask me in a few weeks' time, that could well change.
Definitely. I mean, can Spurs do the other side? Can they dominate possession and break teams down?
No, I'm not sure that they can. I mean, they can break teams down, but it won't be through dominating possession. It will be keep it tight, and just try to get Kane or Son a chance. And they were very patient against Burnley and against West Brom and against Brighton, and that was the way they won those games. Against Crystal Palace, when it went to 1-1, they woke up again and started to create chances. But I think that Leicester fell into the trap big time in this game last season when they attacked Tottenham and they just left all that space for Son, and he just killed the game in the first half. Part of me thinks that Brendan Rodgers, I think arrogance is a good thing. I think he will be arrogant enough to think his Leicester team can go and do what he wants them to do against Tottenham, and I think he might fall into the trap that Jose Mourinho is just waiting to set.
Okay, so your Betfred selection for this one?
Just because of what happened last year when that exactly did happen, Tottenham win.
Fran, what do you say here?
I think it'll be a close game, an intriguing game, this one, but a narrow win for Tottenham.
Okay, I actually think Leicester won't fall into the trap. I'm not going to say, don't worry, I'm not going to say Spurs will lose here. Don't worry, big Spurs fan. But I think Brendan Rodgers will have learnt from last season. We'll say, listen, we'll just take the draw and do a Mourinho almost. Okay. I think they'll cancel each other out. I think it'll be a draw in this one. Okay, game preview 6, and this is a classic one, really, isn't it? Manchester United against Leeds United. And Fran, what did you make of United in the derby, and what did you make of Roy Keane saying there's too much friendliness between the two. I mean, you used to embrace your opponents, your studs around their necks.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too aggressively at times, Scott. But no, I'm on the same page with that. I think the game is very different nowadays. But if you're a supporter and you're looking at that, you know your allegiances and how you want your side to be. And yes, you want them to be competitive in the game. There probably is a time and a place for if you know people, being friendly, but certainly not smiling, laughing and joking maybe immediately after whistle's blown. So
okay, what about the performance of United?
Just so sort of hit and miss, isn't it? This season, it's it's getting that consistency. I think there's quite a bit of criticism coming in for Ole. He's got to deal with that. Again, a little bit like Arsenal and Ozil, there's maybe not to the same degree, but there's the Pogba, shadow at the club and everything and the fast that's going around that. Agents making noises and putting statements out. So it's getting things right from a United perspective. And talking about, I spoke about sort of like having clubs that you almost like have a little bit of a fear against or a negativity or a positivity, whatever. United just don't have that fear factor anymore and haven't done for a long time, I don't think. So any side, even playing at Old Trafford, whereas many years ago, you went there almost not expecting to get beaten, but it's going to be tough.
That was my 6 and 7 at Old Trafford.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, right. Yeah. And I think there's some big
We actually
ones for
scored
me.
first once and made Manchester United angry. We ended up losing 7-1.
You stoked the Hornets.
Yeah,
next,
exactly.
did you?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot for United to do to get back and be consistent at the moment. But they've got the firepower to do it, I think. And this is a game I think they'll anything against Leeds anything could happen, couldn't it? And I expect some sparks to fly in this one with a lot of goals.
Yeah, I mean, what have you made of Leeds? Because yes, they have deficiencies, but we mustn't forget they are a promoted side, and it's the first time been in the Premier League for 16 years.
It's a big club, isn't it, historically? So I think it's great for the Premier League that they're back, and with Bielsa there and his style of management and what he does and how he does things. It's great to see, and it's nice to have a side come up and almost play with that fearlessness. It would be easy to come up as a promoted side and think, let's be a little bit more defensive, keep things tight a little bit. And confidence is a big thing, but they've got some good players. I think the goalkeeper's going to be Melier is a top keeper, and I think he's going to play a huge part in how sort of Leeds United's season is going to pan out this year. But I think they're going to struggle in this one.
Home form is a big problem for them. Perhaps this is being away is great. This is a big game, and this is a game that the club and the fans have been waiting for 16 years.
It is, yeah. I mean, they obviously had the FA Cup success there with Jermaine Beckford.
But in the league, for it to be a league fixture.
Yeah. So but I think that showed, even when there was a big gulf between the teams, what that meant and sort of the attitude of the players. They understood, what the Leeds fans wanted from that. I don't think Bielsa will kind of wind that up too much. I think he just believes in the ultimate process anyway, and it doesn't matter if it's Manchester United or Harchester United. Leeds will play. Our Leeds will play, and he'd be probably angry if they did something different for sort of anything special for Manchester United. I think there are a couple of problems for Leeds. One of them is defending set pieces. It was a problem in the Championship, and they haven't solved it, and they go man for man, and people will say, is that right, or should it be zonal? It doesn't really matter as long as you do the job right, and they're not doing that job right at the moment. And if you wanted an outsider, maybe someone like a Harry Maguire or something from a corner, could be a way to go. Okay,
it's a real shame this is not a full stadium for this one, isn't it? But what is your Betfred selection for this?
I'm going to go a comfortable home win, 3-1, and Rashford, someone like that, I think could even get on the score sheet first.
I'm going to go over 2.5 goals. That way, doesn't matter who scores them. I do expect lots at both ends.
Yeah, both teams to score, but I do fancy a United win. Okay, Monday Night Football. One of the biggest fixtures in the Premier League is Chelsea against West Ham. Some have talked up Chelsea as title contenders, but it's back-to-back defeats now. Tough games, you have to say. Everton away and Wolves away. But what have you made of them over the season? What have you made of them over the last 2 games?
I think Frank's gone in and done a good job at Chelsea. He's had money to spend. And I think that adds a pressure to you as a manager as well, especially at a club like Chelsea. But I like the way Chelsea look and set up. Yes, they've hit a little bit of a blip recently. And I guess that's maybe sort of understandable in some ways with a group of players that have, signings coming in, maybe looking for players to settle on one thing or another. But I like the balance in Frank's side. There's the youngsters, the homegrown talent coming through with the stars that they're signing for big money. And I think they can be a threat on their day for anybody. I think maybe it's still a little bit that learning process for Frank in some ways. We've seen those games where, going 3 behind against West Brom, but getting back into the game. Some more than capable of scoring goals this side, and they're just looking solid a little bit as well. Address the goalkeeper situation with Mendy as well. So yeah, I think they could be a contender there, Chelsea.
He looked absolutely livid last night, didn't he? Didn't really want to sort of talk and be there. You could see he felt that they should have seen the game out. They're the type of games that Frank Lampard, the Chelsea team he was in, they would have found a way to win.
His team certainly wouldn't have got caught on the counter-attack in the 94th minute away from home. I don't understand why they were pushing so much to try to win that game. I know they'd lost against Everton, and you want to try and bounce back and get a win straight away. Draw away at Wolves. I'm not saying you sort of waste time and play really negatively, but I don't think you should leave yourself where it's like 2v2 at the back, which is what ended up happening against, one or if maybe Spurs are the best counter-attacking team in the Premier League, Wolves would probably be second on that list. I felt it was a bit strange, a bit panicky really from Chelsea to push so much to try to win that game when we know it's not going to be a high points tally that wins the league or to finish in the top 4. I think just take your medicine there. It's 1-1. I don't think that's a bad result, and I think that was, whether it was the tactics from the manager or whether the players just took it upon themselves, I think it was up to somebody there to sort of calm the team down and say it's not too bad a result, and they didn't, and they got done for it.
How impressive at West Ham right now. It's a very good win against Leeds last week, wasn't it? Could have been more.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of positive stuff, aren't they? David Moyes doing a great job there with his team and just starting to bring some stability back to the club again. But they're looking really solid, aren't they? I mean, from set pieces, they're looking a real threat. The goals that they're scoring, got a nice blend again. A lot of experience in there. Had some difficult times. Maybe not having supporters in the stadium has helped them a little bit. But yeah, doing very well. So I've been impressed with what West Ham have been doing this season.
What's impressed most about them?
I think I just think it's probably the overall way that they dealt with that terrible start against Newcastle, and then they were a little bit unlucky against Arsenal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then you saw the list of fixtures, and we kept mentioning it every week on the show, Scott. You were going, and next is Man City,
every week
and
I
then
went
there's
through
Liverpool,
them all. Really,
and it's
look
Tottenham.
at this.
But the performance levels were really high throughout. I think that Mark Noble is sort of a club legend, I suppose, but I feel like they're better without him in the team. Just the Souček and Rice, just the two of them in there, and having another body. It was Ben Rama against Leeds. It had been a defender previously, was just helpful. And I like their signings. I think their recruitment, which has been really off and inconsistent, I think maybe we can say. But Bowen's done well. Ben Rama's going to be a player for them. Fornals is coming into his own. Souček, the right back, Kufal as well, has done really well. A lot of those signings have come off. Haller, the one that hasn't, but most of them have. Not all of them will come off. I think
even he's getting better.
He's getting better. Yeah. He couldn't get much worse.
Betfred selection for this one then.
I think it'd be goals in this one, guys. I'm going to go for a score draw though.
I don't fancy Chelsea to win this game. I'm going to go for a draw.
Okay, I'm going for a draw as well. I think there will be goals in this game, and Chelsea, they want to bounce back, but I think West Ham are playing very well at the moment. So yeah, score draw for me. Draw all round. Okay, the best fantasy football pick for this weekend. We pick a player that we think will perform the best. Who have you gone for?
Again, it's sort of, there's different ways of looking at this, isn't there? If you've got money to spend, I've gone for Mo Salah. Like scoring goals, confident, and I think he's just always a threat in that Liverpool side. But there's other options if you wanted to spend your money a little bit wiser.
Well, we know you got your money, so you'll go for Mo Salah. But other people who haven't, who else would you go for?
I think in a little bit like maybe I'm looking close to home here. Somebody like a Shea Adams or someone like that is doing very well at the moment and scoring. So he could possibly be a bit of a better option. But yeah, Mo Salah would be the one I'd go for.
Okay, Mark?
I always like to shop in the bargain basement. Went for Vestergaard last week, got his clean sheet.
very well.
Cavallero, I think Fulham are improving. He's a midfielder in the game, but he's playing very much up front at the moment. And although Fulham aren't very good at penalties, he is taking the penalties, and he did score the last one. And they've got some okay games coming up now. So yeah, he might be one to watch.
Okay, I've gone for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We spoke earlier about, I think he'll be licking his lips towards playing against the Arsenal defence. I think Everton will win, and I can see him getting on the score sheet. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin for me. Okay, finally, it is the team treble where each of us pick a team that we think is going to win 9-1 this week. So who have you gone for, Fran?
I can't see. I think they're going to be a good bet. Continuing Arsenal's woes, I'm afraid, but I'm going to go for Everton.
Okay, Mark?
I'm going down into League One. I know you were at the Valley on Saturday to see Charlton win. This is more really an anti-Swindon selection for Charlton, because Swindon have lost 10 of their last 15 matches. I also think as well, Charlton didn't play in midweek because their game was called off against Bristol Rovers. That could be important at a busy time of the year. Swindon played Doncaster, lost, a bit tired as well. A good opportunity for Charlton to get right back up into the challenging for promotion.
I hope you're right on that one, Mark. I was going to go for Everton, but you pulled rank. So I've looked at it, and I think Brighton are one of the most underrated sides in the division. And I think if they were able to put their chances away, they'd be top half. So they play really good football. I really want Chris Wilder at Sheffield United to do well, get back to winning ways. But I'm going for Brighton here to beat Sheffield United. Okay, that's it. Fran, you enjoyed it? What are you up to this weekend?
Really enjoyed it. Just be following my boys to hopefully see them get a decent result. But it's going to be a difficult one this weekend. But yeah, more football again.
It will be. Great to see you anyway. And Mark, as ever, thank you. Okay, that's it for this week's Different League. We're back next week to see if Southampton can take advantage of being one of the few clubs of having fans in their stadiums. Remember, if you do gamble, please gamble responsibly. On behalf of everyone here at the Racing Post and Betfred, bye for now.